conversation is, I think, more important now than it's ever been. I think it's
I
really
agree.
important to have open dialogue, open commentary, open
Hmm.
debate. People are going to agree on some things, people are going to disagree on some things, but we're living in these times where it seems like a lot of people want to shut down views and ideas they don't agree with. We're
Freedom of
living in
speech.
exactly. We're living in a time where people are starting to question if freedom of speech is even a good thing, which is really bizarre to me, especially as somebody who grew up in Saudi Arabia, where the concept doesn't really exist. So it's weird for me to see people in the UK and in America fighting against freedom of speech because it seems like it's moving backwards rather than forwards, which is quite bizarre to me.
I would actually agree with you. I would say that freedom of speech is actually under attack right now. One of my, I guess, videos that have one of the most views on YouTube was an interview that I done with Tommy Robinson. I sat down and spoke to Tommy Robinson on specifically on the issue of freedom of speech. We both kind of felt like it was under attack, and we sat down and had to talk about it. Now, it caused a little bit of controversy because people thought, "Oh my God, you guys are like totally different guys." You
Mm.
know, I'm like a black nationalist, and he's like a former head of the EDL and the BNP. And he's now, I think he's going to run. I think they're saying he's going to run for UKIP.
Mm.
Like, what do you guys have in common? And what I'm trying to get across to people is, regardless of what views you have in this country, okay, you're going to need freedom of speech. You need a platform to speak your truth. So if his truth is running for UKIP, or speaking about the EDL, or speaking about Muslims in Great Britain, he needs a platform to do so. Just like I need my platform to speak what I feel like I need to speak about. So freedom of speech will affect everyone, and a lot of people don't really understand that trying to take down people's freedoms. I said this so many times. Trying to take down people's freedoms, take it away. When people's voices feel shut down, and people kind of get told not to say stuff, what builds is a pressure.
Mm.
Okay, and when people know that their words are going to fall on deaf ears, what is going to happen? Not that I'm condoning it. The next step is physical retribution,
Mm.
because they feel like they can't be heard. So they want to touch you,
Yeah, yeah.
so you can hear them. And I think if the government is not careful, I think things are going to get touched.
Yeah, that's what I always say. I mean, something I've repeated a couple of times on this podcast, and I think in a couple YouTube videos, is that people really have three options. One is dialogue and discussion.
Yep.
Two is separation and segregation.
Mm-hmm.
And three is violence. Those are the
Mm-hmm.
only three ways you can resolve any issue. It doesn't matter if it's with your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your child, um, someone in your community, someone
Yeah.
outside it, another
Mm.
another entire nation, right? Once the talking stops, then yeah, either you need to just go your separate ways and be completely separated, which I don't think is necessarily a good idea for a lot of reasons, but or the other option is to go to war, whether on an individual level or on a group level. And I think when it comes to this freedom of speech thing, I just think people are not thinking through it completely, and they're not really understanding why it is so important. I mean, I had someone commenting on a YouTube video the other day, sort of trying to say that I was somehow they were saying something like the only people who defend freedom of speech are people who want to engage in hate speech. And I was like, this is such a stupid thing to say.
Wow.
And that's not the first time I've even heard someone say that. They were saying, the people who go on and on about freedom of speech, they're just trying to get away with hate speech and this and that. And then
And
they,
they'll call you far right next.
oh, I've had all sorts of things. And then they started talking about how marginalized people need to be protected and this and that. And I was trying to tell them freedom of speech is how people who were previously marginalized and genuinely oppressed actually were able to have movements because they had freedom of speech. That's the only way. Like
Exactly.
all these groups you're talking about, these minorities, whether you're talking about gay people, whether you're talking about women's liberation or whatever, without freedom of speech, none of that stuff would have happened. So I think people have this sort of short-sighted view of like thinking that their personal decision of what is acceptable and what is not is the only one. So, okay, everything I believe and support is freedom of speech. Anything outside of that is hate speech. So they try to play this game, not realizing that the same thing can be used against them.
I think they're becoming the new intolerant,
Mm.
and they try to call other people intolerant. So they're becoming intolerant of other people's views, which is basically supremacy. Um, I've always said that any supremacist ideology is a threat to humanity.
Mm.
Anyone who thinks their way is the best way and only their way should be looked upon as the best way is a threat to humanity. It doesn't matter whether you're black, white, religious supremacist, Chinese supremacist, ideological. It doesn't matter what the ideology that you have.
Mm.
If you think it's good to think your way is better, but if you think you should enforce that on people,
Yeah.
then we start to see the problem. Then we start to see people push back and say, hey, you can't force that on me. I know you feel that way, but you can't. I don't think the same way as you, and you can't force that on me. So yeah, I really do think that one of my co-hosts on my show, Big Bro, says we live in interesting times. And yeah, I'm going to take that from him. We live in interesting times.
Yeah.